So before we go any further in the holidays, I have a statement that our attorneys have asked me to read to you. So just listen for a moment. Please accept with no obligation, implied or implicit, my best wishes for an environmentally conscious, socially responsible, low-stress, non-addictive, gender-neutral celebration of the winter solstice holiday. Practice within the most enjoyable traditions of the religious persuasion of your choice or secular practices of your choice with respect to the religious secular persuasions of and translations of others, and or their choice not to practice religious or secular traditions at all. And a fiscally successful, personally fulfilling, and medically uncomplicated recognition of the onset of the generally accepted calendar year 2015. But not without due respect for the calendars or choices of other cultures whose contributions to society have helped make America great. Not to imply that America is necessarily greater than any other country, or is the only America in the Western Hemisphere, and without regard to race, creed, color, age, physical disability or ability, religious faith, choice of computer program, or sexual orientation of the wishee. By accepting this greeting, you are accepting these terms. This greeting is subject to clarification or withdrawal. It is freely transferable with no alteration to the original greeting. It implies no promise by the wisher to actually implement any of the wishes for herself or himself or others, and is void where prohibited by law, and is revocable at the sole discretion of the wisher. This wish is warranted to perform as expected within the usual application of good tidings for a period of 1 year or until the issuance of a subsequent holiday greeting, whichever comes first. And warranty is limited to replacement of this wish or issuance of a new wish at the sole discretion of the wisher. Now we can move on. Just so we're clear. I'll share a story with you. I may have shared this with you before, but the first time I ever went to a Unity church, I had been out of church, denounced church, didn't want any part of church for a long time at that point in my life. And at that point in my life, when I entered into a recovery program and wanted to find a higher power that I was willing to turn my will and my life over to, I went in search of that. And so I went to a Unity church. But I walked in, and right above the platform was this huge cross. And my immediate reaction was, oh no, this is a Christian church. I can't have any part of that. Well, I soon found out the different way that Unity approaches Christianity. I was turned off to Christianity. And if I had walked into a church at that point in my life and I'd seen a nativity scene displayed, I would have run out the back door. Because that was not a part, I didn't want any part of that. And to just a little further into that story, I've even had people say today that I might use the word Jesus too often, or I might refer to the Bible too often, and so I think, well, that's just the way it is for me today. I've just sort of come, in a way, to a greater understanding, and that's one of the gifts that Unity has brought into my life. It has helped me to rediscover an appreciation for Jesus and rediscover an appreciation for the Bible and the stories in the Bible. And for those of you who might be new to Unity, just a little background is that Unity does not look at the Bible literally. We don't interpret the Bible as a literal history, as fact always. We look at the Bible primarily metaphysically, as metaphor, as allegory. And we look at the Bible as a way for us to understand ourselves. We don't look at the stories in the Bible as something that happened 2,000 or more years ago. We want to look at the stories in the Bible and to explore what meaning they have for us today. How does it apply to my life? What can I learn from this story that I might apply to my own experience today? And that's one of the gifts, really, that Unity has given to me. And I'm guessing to many of you who have been in Unity for a while. And that's why I get excited now about Christmas. Because the Christmas story comes alive for me in a different way every year now. I learn something new in the story every year when I'm willing to be with it and explore it and meditate on it. And so that's what I want us to, inviting us into again this year, is to see what we individually can get from the story. Now, Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, with the aid of, as I understand, the Kabbalah, which is the mystical teaching of Judaism, created something called the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. And in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, every person, every place, everything really, has some metaphysical meaning. There's some aspect of each and every one of us that is represented by each and every person, each and every place, each and every animal in the Bible stories. And that's why, to me, it is so rich. The Christmas story is so rich with meaning. Because the way I look at the Christmas story today is that it's showing me, if I'm willing to look at it, where I am in my own acceptance and embodiment and expression of my divine nature, which in Unity we call the Christ. So the idea for Christmas for us, is the Christ being born in our own awareness, in our own hearts, in our own spirits, and our own willingness to express it. We don't teach that the Christ was one person. We believe that Jesus was a man who embodied the Christ, and that each and every one of us can do the same. And so that's the story of Christmas for us, is where are we in that? And the Christ, as Charles Fillmore said in the Mysteries of John, he said the true light, or the Christ, this is what his interpretation of one of the passages from the first chapter of John, the true light that lights every man or person coming into the world is and ever has been in man and woman. Even the outer was formed and came into existence through it. Christ is being revealed to the race with more and more clarity and a greater increase of power. Christ is the essence of who we are, even though we may not be aware of it. And I think what Jesus in the story reveals to us, and throughout the stories of Jesus in the Bible, he's revealing to us the expression of the Christ consciousness, the Christ idea. Charles Fillmore said the Christ is an ideal. It is the ideal person. It is one idea in the mind of God for humanity. And it contains all the perfect ideas, all the expressions. Charles Fillmore called them the 12 powers. All the possibilities, the capacities of humanity is contained within this idea of the Christ. And so how are we doing with that? And we celebrate in unity Jesus, the birth of Jesus, not because we believe he was the Savior for the world, but because we believe that he was here as a teacher to teach us, to show us the way. And through that, if we apply it, if we believe it, if we embody it, we are saved. But only saved from our own thoughts of lack and limitation, our own belief that we are sinful. That's our own belief that we are unworthy. And so we are saved through following Jesus and his way, his teaching. And so the story, if you look at this scene right up here, each and every person, each and every animal, each and every thing in this scene up here today, we call the creche or the nativity scene, represents an aspect of you and me, our own consciousness. And where are we in our own consciousness? And so that's my question for me this Christmas season. And I want to invite you into the question. Where are we? Where are we in the story? What aspect of the story are we more in touch with? Are we more alive with right now? That's my question for me. And I'm going to explore that a little bit today in looking at the story a little bit, in that as I explored the story a little bit, the story actually includes more than just Mary and Joseph and Jesus, but it also includes, in some parts, in some narrative, the Zacharias and Elizabeth, who was Mary's cousin, who were the parents of John the Baptist. John the Baptist was the one who proclaimed the coming of Jesus, who was going to be the one to show the way. Mary, obviously, was one who opened herself up to the expression and to the birth of that Christ energy. Gabriel, the angel who appeared to not only Mary, but he appeared in the story to Zacharias, who was a priest, the husband of Elizabeth, to tell him that even though Elizabeth believed that she was barren and she was too old to have a child, that she was going to have a child. Where are we? Where are we in the story? The angel Gabriel represents to us that divine idea. That is the existence of the Christ, the possibility of the Christ, the possibility and the potential for each and every one of us. Angels represent divine ideas. So the angel Gabriel represents the dawning of that divine idea in our consciousness. And if you look at the story, Zacharias, Elizabeth's husband, received that idea. An idea of possibility. An idea of possibility. And Elizabeth, who believed that she was in a place of, sort of a place of separation, that she was never going to have a child, was willing to receive it as well. And so, if this is a new concept to you, if the idea that you are the Christ, or you have the potential, the possibility to be the Christ, and it wasn't just Jesus as the Christ, if it is a new idea for you and you're thinking, how can that possibly be true? I invite you to kind of open, if you're willing, to the possibility. You may be in that place where I was for so much of my life in thinking that, that's just out there somewhere. That Jesus is the only one who was the Christ. And somehow I'm separated from that. Somehow that's apart from me. That can't possibly be my truth. And maybe that's kind of where you're coming in to the story this year. I don't know. And what I want to say about that before I go any further as well is that even though the story is presented in a very linear fashion, our experience does not happen that way. At least it hasn't for me. I may be in that place of wonder, questioning, and I may be in that place, a different place tomorrow. But honoring that place, if I'm in that place, owning it and being willing to then ask myself the question, am I really willing to explore that a little bit? Am I willing to open my mind to the possibility that I might be that as well? And then we have, in the story, Mary, who opens herself up, who really opens her heart. Mary really symbolizes the soul. And I love that song that Lauren sang was so touching to me because that, I believe, is the prayer of the Mary in each and every one of us. That each and every one of us has that aspect of the Mary. Where we are willing to really open our hearts and be receptive. To be receptive to the possibility of the Christ. To open ourselves up to be the vessel for the Christ. As the song said, be born in me. The awareness, the possibility, the perfection, the potential of what Jesus was here to teach us. Our oneness with God, the creative life force energy. Allow that awareness to be born in me. And I think, honestly, I think that's where I am. Just longing for that. Just be born in me. And so I invite us again to question, wonder, be in the wonder of that. Am I really in touch with the soul that Mary represents? And I believe that the only desire, the highest desire, the sole desire of us is to know that for ourselves. And to allow that awareness to be born in us and through us. And so I just invite you to be in your own wonder about that. If you have been in that mental awareness of, yeah, it's a possibility, I get it. I get it intellectually. I get it like Joseph got it. I get it that it's a possibility, that it's a potential. And if you've kind of been in that place for a while, I just invite you to wonder what it would be like to move it from here down into our hearts. To open to that soul desire. To realize the Christ. And then if you've been there for a while, I invite you to maybe look a little bit deeper. I know it's a possibility. I feel that it's a possibility. My soul is open for it to be a possibility, to give birth to that. And what is it like? What might it be like to really be and to embrace that aspect of yourself that Jesus represents? The one who embodied the Christ, who realized his oneness with the Father, Abba, the source. The one who was really willing to stand in his truth and say, the Father and I are one. Because I think that's what the story is really all about. For me, today, in my own understanding of who Jesus was and what he was here to teach. I've said it before, but I will say it again. I don't believe, there was nothing in the Bible that ever said, Jesus said, worship me. He said, follow me. Follow me. Follow me in the way of knowing. Follow me in the way of claiming the truth. And as we do that, then we do become the Christ in mass. We become the ones, the promised Messiah, if you will. The promised Messiah who is here to bring into this dimension the reign of peace on the earth. To restore God's kingdom on the earth. It wasn't Jesus' job to do that. It's our job to do that. And I believe he was here to help us learn that and to show us how to do that. And so as we explore Christmas from that perspective, just invite us to be in the question during these next few weeks. Wonder, am I willing to just be curious about the story again, maybe from a different perspective? Am I willing to be curious about the story and about the characters in the story? And am I willing to be curious about me? What's going on for me? And am I really willing to embrace the Christmas story as my story? What can I learn? How can I grow? How can I expand in my own awareness and my own embodiment of the ideal of the Christ this year? So that's what I invite us into. Our own question, our own exploration, our own wonder as we embrace this season of wonder.